Hi guys, welcome back to the Run It Back podcast. I am your host, Joy. Alongside with me, as always, is my partner in crime, Wes. How you doing today, Wes?
Hi, Joy. Hi, Run It Back Nation. I'm doing well. Uh, very, very interesting week in
Yeah,
our part of the woods, and we're hopefully slowly getting to a brighter future, and
yeah,
hopefully we can try and shore up some things. But regardless of what the worldview says, it's still life without Formula One.
absolutely, and yeah, it's gonna be yeah. My day has been kind of crazy as well. Just got off work, and so yeah. But yeah, pretty much, there's gonna be a short show today. We're just gonna cover hot laps, and then there's pretty much only two big, I would say, kind of big news this week. But before that, I also want to clear things up. Last week we covered the news that a principal from MotoGP was going to come in and take in Cyril Abitable's spot. We said that his name was like Rossi. Now, of
Oh, you're
course,
talking about Flavio Brivio.
yeah, no, exactly. No, but what do you call it? His name is Davide Brivio.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
Yeah, his name
there
is
you
David.
go.
Yeah, exactly. And so we made that mistake last episode. And so, yeah, we want to correct it. We obviously know who Valentino Rossi is. We just kind of, I actually thought that the guy's name was Rossi, like his last name was Rossi, but his
The
name,
CEO of Alpine,
right,
the company itself, is Laurent Rossi
right, right,
Valentino.
exactly.
Come on, man.
No. But that's what I'm saying is that if listening through our last podcast, it seemed as though like we knew like that guy that Davide Brivio's last name was Rossi that was gonna take over. But
Well, that's the line that you took. I was referring to
right,
Brivio the whole time.
okay, cool. But yeah, like, just to clear things up, Davide Brivio is the one that's filling in for Cyril Abitable. So yeah, but yeah,
And
that's
Cyril Abiteboul still somewhere in the middle of nowhere.
nowhere. Yeah, probably thinking about getting the tat. But yeah. So yeah, biggest news this week I would say is Sergio Perez, right? His first days with Red Bull. Um, this is pretty much his first day that we. This is pretty much the first day that we get to see him in a blue uniform. Wes, any reactions to Sergio Perez in his first days? By the way, interesting quote from Sergio Perez. Sergio Perez said that if we have a car that can win the championship, I will make sure we will win it. Now, there's a little bit of salt that's like being sprinkled on those sentences on that sentence, right? Like, well, tell me, Wes. How did you react to his first days?
Well, just by looking at the photos, one, he looks happier.
Hmm.
Two, he looks good in blue,
It was good in blue.
yellow, and red. And three, he seemed happy putting his hand in the damn Red Bull cooler. But then again, who knows how? I don't know what BWT tastes like. So, but he did look happy getting that Red Bull out of the fridge.
Absolutely, and yeah, I agree with you. He looks a lot more happier, of course, because over a month ago his future wasn't certain. He didn't know where he was gonna go. There wasn't like a team that was. There was a point in the season where he said that all conversations had stopped between him and the other teams that were kind of looking for drivers because at that time a lot of the teams were already set. They already knew who were they gonna pick. That's why conversations stopped, and it was only like Red Bull's very last call to bring him in and relieve of Alex Albon, right? And so, yeah, I mean, and also like Wes, do you have any reactions to the sentence that he gave? Right, like if we have a championship car, I will make sure we win the championship.
Well, for me, that just goes to show that he's a competitor.
Right.
He's going out to win.
Mm.
Granted, we don't know how this year's Red Bull is going to be.
Right.
Of course, if you were to do a very early betting odd, you would think that Red Bull would be second.
Right.
And that's not to say that that car is automatically no longer a championship contender. It actually very well is.
Right. Yeah,
because we have still yet to see a Mercedes, and at the same time, we have to see if this first year is going to look good with McLaren Mercedes, and we'll see if Ferrari is going to bounce back, right?
absolutely.
But for me, that's just Sergio Perez being a competitor.
Okay.
That's all. I mean, I can't imagine someone who is in Formula One not saying that.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So it's nothing new. It's nothing shocking to
Right.
me.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, exactly. But yeah, for me, I guess I took it a little bit more differently. Like, if he does have the chance to fight for a championship, if it came down to these two drivers, Sergio Perez or Max Verstappen, I mean, who are they going to choose? Of course, it's going to be Max, right? I'm not sure if I'm pretty sure Sergio knows that. Um, when he said that if we have a chance to make the championship, then he will make sure that we'll get the championship. Does that mean, if the team asks you to step aside because Verstappen is right behind you, are you gonna do it, right? Because this is kind of well, okay, this was the thing that I think that Sergio Perez won't back down from, right? He doesn't really like to lose, especially in his team against his own teammate. We've seen this against with Ocon. He generally would not, step aside for his teammate. Um, and he didn't really have that problem with Stroll because he's usually a lot faster than Stroll. Usually has a lot more race pace. But yeah, I thought this was like interesting. Interesting that he said that. So, I mean, it'll be incredible if Sergio Perez turns out to be the world champion, right? Like he beats Max Verstappen. I doubt it, but like I said, I do think that the Red Bull has a great chance of winning the constructors this year. I don't think their drivers are gonna win the drivers, any of their drivers. It seems as though once they have that Hamilton contract um, ready and good to go, it's really hard to stop Hamilton in that Mercedes. So yeah, like I don't think that this is gonna be well. Yeah, Sergio Perez should have a lot of confidence in himself. He should have a lot of confidence in his team. But when it comes down to it, who does the team have confidence in? You know what I'm saying, Wes? So hopefully it does get to that point where you know it could just be just the Red Bulls. It's whoever the Red Bulls are winning. That means we finally have a competition against the Mercedes. Um, but I still think that Mercedes is still up there. They're a little bit harder to catch. But yeah, pretty much. Anything else?
I mean, like I said before, it's their championship to lose,
Absolutely,
Mercedes.
absolutely.
So there's nothing wrong with that sentiment,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So, but in terms of Checo Perez,
Mm-hmm.
before we put a stamp on it, you know, it I think he can be a good support for Max,
Right,
but at the same time, I can see a lot of growing pains given that the gap is going to be a lot closer, at least
right,
hypothetically.
right.
Because best case scenario, they compete, and it's going to be like a four-car battle
Right,
for the podium positions, right?
right.
Worst case scenario, it's the same thing all over again, and then it becomes
Exactly.
one of the worst signings in Red Bull history.
Yeah, exactly. You,
So
you hit it right on the head, Wes. Like it should be Valtteri Bottas versus Sergio Perez and Max Verstappen versus Lewis Hamilton. The thing that I'm saying is like what if it was a 1-2 for Red Bull and it was Sergio Perez versus Verstappen, and that is where I think Sergio is gonna have to. He's gonna see that of course Red Bull is going to favor Max because he's been there the longest. They want him to be there. They want to keep Verstappen happy so that he can be there longer. And so yeah, it's going to be interesting, Wes. You brought up a great point. It should be a four-car battle, but especially when you have two drivers that as hungry as Verstappen and Perez, it's going to be a little bit more complicated than that. So yeah, Well
I
said.
mean,
Well said, Wes.
if you wanna get a clue of what could happen, just refer to my quotes of having two number one drivers on the same team. So
I don't know
it just so
how
happens
McLaren
that
did it.
Mercedes happens to be very good at
Yeah.
dividing the one and the one A,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, that's the thing, right?
because VB would have been a number one driver. Out of
Ooh,
topic, obviously, but no, VB would
yeah.
be a number one driver someplace else.
Probably Williams. People are saying rumors that Russell goes up, Bottas goes down to Williams. Of course, Williams is working a little bit closer with Mercedes, so it could be a possibility, man. But yeah,
Something tells me JB is going to take matters into his own hands.
ooh, oh, you think so? You think JB has a lot of power in that team? Just joining it?
Possibly,
Oh,
possibly.
I wish.
It's a new breath of fresh air for the Williams team.
I do.
So
Yeah,
anything can happen.
I agree.
And for our listeners, the breaking news, I guess, Jensen Button has
Yeah,
accepted a senior advisor role with
with
Williams.
Williams. Yeah. So
So
of course,
that's why I'm half jokingly saying that JB
yeah.
will take control of Williams.
And I've always kind of like said this as well. It's pretty much like wherever JB goes, I will follow, because JB is kind of like he's kind of weirdly enough, Wes. Jensen Button is the guy that represented Honda for such a long time. He had such close connections with Honda that like wherever Honda went, JB would have went, right? Because Honda was the team that pretty much gave him his first win, the team that gave him faith in him to win, and the team that picked him up when he retired, go to Super GT. And so
Sure.
yeah, I think yeah, I
I
mean
mean, the first engine he got to drive around was
was a
BMW,
BMW, yes, yes,
and then of course his championship was made by who? The engine of this championship when it comes made by
Mercedes,
who? I'm sorry. Yeah, there we go. That's what I
Mercedes,
thought.
exactly.
So yeah, he's the everything man, if
Yeah.
you ask me.
By the way, if you're new listening to Formula One, if you're using us to kind of gain a little bit of knowledge about Formula One, uh, that Mercedes team, the Mercedes AMG Petronas team, used to be the Works Honda manufacturer, which is insane to me, Wes. Could you imagine if Honda had stayed just for a couple more years? They could have won with Ross Brawn, definitely with Braun GP, and who
Sure.
knows? Who knows? Like Andy Cowell could have probably joined their program and given them the hybrid engines that they needed, right? But
Well,
like,
sure. But then again, a lot of those
yeah,
issues were far beyond Honda's control,
mm,
right? So that was a time of
absolutely,
global recession.
mm,
So, of course, Formula One is not always a profitable scheme
right,
for motor companies.
right,
So, yeah, for Honda, knowing that they are in the production car, everyday person market,
mm,
they might as well save their assets
right.
or focus their assets on what they do best,
It,
especially at a rough time.
yeah, it's great that you said that, because the very last sports car that they pretty much made, very last two sports cars that they pretty much made, was the new Civic Type R, the one that set the fastest lap in the Nürburgring for a production car front wheel drive or hatchback, right? And then the next one is, well, while it's rebadged here differently in US, the Acura NSX was the second pretty much car that they went under to make because Honda has always had this sporty car image, um, and so they kind of lost that throughout the middle of the century, where they had to make more fuel efficient cars and a lot more safer cars. So yeah, definitely. This is why like I follow JB, because I feel like he is part of that Honda family. He is a lot more closely to that Honda family. So
Oh,
yeah,
100%.
absolutely.
And
So
yeah, I mean, Honda's also the most successful
Japanese,
Japanese or
yeah,
Asian manufacturer in the competition, and
right,
that makes people happy, and something it makes something good out of
yeah,
a production brand. And if you ask me, Joy, because you and I like cars,
right,
I think JDM culture should be more privy to what Honda can do in the
right.
organized motorsport world.
Well, that's it. Yeah,
not just making capable tuning cars on the street.
absolutely, Wes. And I mean, we could also talk about like the culture in Formula One, but I feel like um, in Formula One, we've spoken about this, right? Formula One seems to be becoming more American. There's a lot of American companies that are buying into Formula One that are owning these Formula One teams. And it seems as though what Formula One is lacking right now is a superstar from the United States. And if that
Right.
superstar happens to be in the culture of JDM, then the entire scene would just blow up, right? You would just have these kids like you and I that are into JDM would just automatically gravitate, not automatically, but like would have a better chance of gravitating towards Formula One because look at this guy. He's got, he was backed by a lot of JDM. Like he knows, like we could relate to him, and so I feel like that's what Formula One is missing. That kind of edge factor, you know.
Well, that means you're basically saying that in to some extent that Formula One could use another Lewis Hamilton like driver,
Right.
because
Right.
then if you had someone that was just more so that basically was driving a Ferrari or Mercedes since they were a little kid, then it's kind of
Yeah.
like, okay, that goes
Yeah.
to show why Formula One is a rich person thing.
Exactly.
But then you
Exactly.
got people like you and me who are working class men, family men,
Right.
who are willing to get up at times that we don't want to get up to watch this awesome sport.
Right. Yeah.
So, and it's like, yeah, and we're also our listeners, we're also saying this because we're also both proud Honda owners and we love our cars, and
Right.
and we would do anything and everything to make sure they're in tip top shape. And sometimes we feel like um, it's Formula One when we're driving on an open road and no one's there to stop us. But
Yeah.
yeah, so it would be nice. It would be nice, but to wrap it all up, I hope. Speaking of Honda and our man of the topic, I hope Checo enjoys Honda Power
I,
and
I hope so too.
thousands and thousands of free sugar-free Red Bulls at his disposal.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. So I mean, I would love to be in the team just because of the free Red Bull.
Who wouldn't?
But yeah, that's why Max is so fast. But yeah. Anyway, moving on. So Stefano Domenicali is the guy that he used to be an ex Ferrari principal, and he after that after Formula One he took over Lamborghini. He pretty much ran Lamborghini, and now he's back. He's back in Formula One, and he is now the chief executive officer, I believe. I think that's so. He's a CEO. Used to belong to Chase Carey. Um, now it's Stefano Domenicali. So, and what's interesting is like, as soon as Stefano Domenicali's name was like announced to be the next CEO of Formula One, a lot of teams spoke against it because look, this is a Ferrari guy getting into a high position in Formula One again. When you have Jean Todt, who used to be a Ferrari team principal, and then you have Ross Brawn, who was the Ferrari like lead technical, you know, advisor,
Engineer.
engineer.
Yeah.
So like, of course, when you have these this generation of like Ferrari executives running Formula One, it of course it's gonna bring up the conversation of like Ferrari gets away with a lot of things that a lot of smaller teams would have to pay a lot more for, but because Ferrari has been in this position for such a long time, like that's how they get this power. Like that's how you know they just have this network of just Ferrari drivers or Ferrari executives. And one thing that one thing I do like, I will say I do like Stefano Domenicali. Um, he wasn't quite the best team principal. I feel like at times he didn't know what to really say when push came to shove. He was obviously ruthless. I think every Ferrari team principal has to be ruthless, but um, he said something about the new era of Formula One, and he said that he's excited because he believes that the future of Formula One is the drivers, not the car. right? Because when you look back into the history of Formula One, it's gonna be the drivers' names that we're gonna remember. And he said that because the new generation is already here, while I just began my term, the new, uh, the future of Formula One is so bright because we have these big stars like Charles Leclerc, Max Verstappen, Lando Norris, George Russell. So like he said, Formula One's problem is not the drivers. The 20 drivers are pretty good. Um, I would say 19 of them deserve it, but yeah, like I love that he said that because a lot of people say that like of course Formula One, a lot of people still criticize Formula One for claiming that they have the best talent in driving, when it's still hard for like a driver from a totally different discipline, racing discipline, to get over to Formula One, and you can't really say that these Formula One drivers are the best in the world when they only pretty much are very focused and specialized in their way of driving. But in saying that, Stefano brought up the biggest problem, and I think that's the cars, right? The cars have been such a topic of like pretty much criticism and like a lot of yeah. There's just been a lot of criticism of the cars, and I get that, especially like especially when you can't create close racing. A lot of people believe it's the cars, and I also believe it's the cars. So, Wes, what is your thoughts on Stefano Domenicali's new suggestions for Formula One?
Well, I don't know if it would be entirely possible
Right,
with the car, especially with the cars,
right,
because if everyone from car makers to even just people,
mm,
public opinion,
right,
if a lot of people are trying to shift towards a green future, close to zero carbon footprint
right.
in everything, it kind of is hard to it's kind of hard to try and do anything when it's going to be turbo hybrid era for the next decade or so at the least, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because it's what the new regulations come in 2022,
Yes, next year.
right? And then I think 2025 they'll develop it even further or something
Uh,
like that.
it would be time for the engines to go.
Yeah, exactly. See,
So,
and chances are, they're not going to go back to
right.
I can't see them going back to like V12,
No, no, no,
10,
absolutely not.
V8 maybe, but
But
you
yeah,
know, I don't know. A lot of it is a lot of it could also be that you might bring up a good point, Joy, or you might have brought up a good point, Joy, in that like it could be something that would cover Ferrari,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Because
absolutely.
even people that in other sports, executives in other sports, when they've gotten into league wide or competition wide positions, they tried to propose rules that would have more or less favored their old teams.
Exactly.
For those that are not based in North America, NFL,
Right.
football. There's this team called the Indianapolis Colts. Their owner was Jim Irsay,
Mm.
and Jim Irsay always tried to bring up rules that would preferably favor his team rather than anyone else.
Right.
So I think what Joy's trying to get at here is that possibly there's a possible risk of Domenicali trying to perhaps get some headway or propositions that could favor Formula One in general, but mostly more Ferrari than anyone else.
Exactly. Yeah. And yeah, yeah, yeah. And perhaps I also kind of convoluted the question here, Wes, and that's totally my fault. But yeah, like we're heading into era of Formula One where it's supposed to be equal racing, and well, that's the thing, right? Like just because we changed the arrow, just because we changed the regulation, And just because we set a budget, that doesn't necessarily mean that there's still a disadvantage within the teams, right? Like, of course, yes, Mercedes can only spend 175 or 140 million on their car, but they could hire more people. There's going to be more minds, there's going to be more eyes on the car that they're producing, as opposed to like a Williams, who has probably like only like 50 or 60 eyes on the car. And so like, yeah, so like Formula One is definitely not a very fair competition, I would say, Wes. Um,
Oh no, I
yeah,
think anyone could figure that out.
yeah,
That
and
it's not equal.
yeah, and that's the thing. Like, Stefano, because like I said, he was part of this Ferrari dream team, and he was kind of like the beneficiary after the Ferrari dream team. It seems as though Formula One is very dominated by Ferrari executives, former Ferrari executives, uh, and you know, it's just weird. It's just strange to kind of see, but I do, for some reason, I do trust them. I trust them that they're in. They have Formula One's best interest in mind, and so we will see. We will see, right? Like, this could be, the new regulations could definitely shake up the grid order. It could also remain the same, right? Because also a lot of people are saying that, like, yeah, the aero parts, the body parts of the car are gonna be similar. So the thing that matters the most is the engine, and right now it's still Mercedes who dominate the engine. And if you're gonna put an engine freeze for development, Mercedes is still gonna rack up a lot of points unless you build up a car that could pretty much erase the deficit between Mercedes and yourself. You gotta have a pretty good car.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's gonna be really hard, I think, even for Stefano Domenicali's regime to try and make equal racing.
Right.
A part of me feels like when they do go to that new car, um, engine freeze or no engine freeze, there's going to be a dominant team.
Right.
Like, for example, if V6 hybrid never happened, maybe Red Bull would have won 10 by now or something like that.
Right.
Right. Or, yeah, or at least that's what Max Verstappen maintains. And
Right.
I honestly believe it.
Yeah.
If they
Could have been
never
possible.
if they never changed the engine, then maybe Sebastian would have never went to Ferrari, and then Red Bull would have just ran with it.
Right.
But of course, then again, we can't. It's hindsight's 2020,
Yeah.
and we don't know how this engine and this new car design is going to look.
Right.
At least on the track, we don't know unless we race, right?
Absolutely.
So, for as far as we know, shoot, Mercedes could even dominate 2 different eras in a row, which would be painful.
Right.
If you're more of a wheel-to-wheel all-action fan.
Right.
If you're a Mercedes fan, if you're a Lewis fan,
you'd love it.
Toto fan, you don't give a crap, right? You don't care because you're winning. But at the same time, it's like, for the sake of Formula One, it's just like, oh, come on.
Right.
We were promised, or like quote unquote promised closer racing.
Right. But I mean, hey,
there's a possibility that we won't.
Exactly. And so, like, I mean, Mercedes still has the same handbook, the same rules that they have to adhere to to the same other teams, but like I said, it's still an unfair advantage. They're going up against manufacturers. These privateer teams are going against manufacturers. They're not going against teams that, you could, pretty much just, they're not like a family owned business. These are like corporations. They can get the best people to do the job, and because they have the deeper pockets, they can pay these people a lot better, a lot more. And so, we definitely went a little off tangent on the two topics, but I love it because it brought up the conversation, these great conversations of, well, what state is Formula One in right now, and what does the new regulation suggest, right? So, yeah, thank you so much, Wes, for kind of, steering us towards that topic.
A pleasure.
But yeah, so pretty much, yeah, that's pretty much it. That we had those are the two biggest news. Those are the two hot laps that we have. Uh, and yeah, thank you guys so much for listening. Wait again. We'll see you again on Friday. Hopefully, we'll have bigger news. We'll probably cover perhaps the Williams, Jenson Button Williams topic a little bit more once we have finer details. It was just announced today. So yeah, it'll be fun. Thank you so much for listening, and yeah, good night.
Keep it on track.